The cabin lights of Delta Flight 243 dimmed as the last of the passengers found their seats. Flight attendants hurried to stow bags, children squirmed in their seats, and the quiet rumble of jet engines built a steady backdrop. Somewhere near the back of the plane, a man in a plain gray hoodie lowered himself into seat 12F, the window seat. He looked like any other weary traveler, mid-40s, strong shoulders slightly hunched, a duffel bag at his feet, a paperback novel resting on the tray table. His beard was trimmed, his face weathered but kind, and his eyes carried a heaviness, the sort that spoke of both sleepless nights and quiet endurance. This man was Ethan Cole, single father of a 10-year-old girl named Lily. To the strangers around him, he was simply another passenger. But inside, Ethan carried a story few knew, a past he seldom spoke about, and a heart that beat for the daughter waiting for him back in Atlanta. Lily had called him just before boarding. Her little voice was still ringing in his ears. "Daddy, don't forget, Friday is the science fair. You promised you'd be there." Ethan smiled at the memory. He'd promised, and he never broke promises to Lily. She was all he had, all the family that mattered after tragedy had stolen his wife years earlier. To provide for her, Ethan worked odd jobs, construction shifts, overnight deliveries, even consulting quietly for aviation firms when they needed someone with specialized knowledge. He lived simply, sacrificed quietly, and loved his daughter fiercely. Today, though, nobody around him had any idea that the man in seat 12F once had a call sign whispered with reverence in U.S. Air Force squadrons. They didn't know that years earlier, Falcon had flown missions that never made the evening news but changed the course of lives forever. 2. A flight like any other. As the plane lifted into the sky, Ethan leaned his head against the window, watching the patchwork of field shrink below. Around him, passengers settled into routines, earbuds in, laptops open, seat belts buckled loosely across laps. A young soldier in uniform, barely 20, sat across the aisle. He looked nervous, flipping through photos on his phone. Ethan gave him a nod. "First deployment?" Ethan asked gently. The boy startled, then nodded. "Yes, sir. Heading to training first, then overseas." Ethan's voice was steady, fatherly. "Stay sharp, trust your wingman, and remember, you're never as alone as you think up there." The soldier blinked, surprised at the phrasing, but smiled with gratitude. "Thank you, sir." Ethan returned the smile, then went quiet. He didn't need to say more. Hours passed. The seatbelt sign pinged off. People relaxed. Drinks clinked in plastic cups. Somewhere near the cockpit, a pair of children pressed their noses to the window, pointing at the clouds. The flight was routine, until the captain's voice came over the intercom. 3. An announcement no one expected. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain said, his tone shifting to something almost reverent, "if you look out of the right-hand windows, you'll see 2 F-22 Raptors flying in formation with us." Passengers gasped and craned their necks. Sure enough, sleek gray fighters cut through the sky, wings gleaming in the sunlight. Their presence was unusual but not unheard of. Sometimes training flights coincided with commercial routes. But then the captain added something strange. "They're not just passing by. They're here on request, to honor someone on board." Murmurs filled the cabin. People exchanged puzzled looks. Who could possibly warrant fighter jets as escorts? The captain continued, his voice thick with respect. "We've been informed that seated in 12F is a man whose service callsign once commanded the skies. Pilots across our Air Force still tell stories of Falcon, a man who carried his squadron through impossible missions and never left a wingman behind. Today, these F-22 pilots wish to pay their respects." Every head turned. Seat 12F. Ethan froze, his hand tightening on the armrest. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't asked for it. The young soldier across the aisle stared at him wide-eyed. "Sir, you're him." Ethan gave a small, humble smile. "I was. A long time ago." The cabin erupted in applause. Strangers stood, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. The soldier snapped to attention right there in the aisle, saluting with trembling hands. Ethan slowly rose, pressing his palm to the window. Outside, one of the Raptors tilted its wing in salute. The other pilot dipped his nose, holding steady beside the commercial plane. And in that suspended moment at 30,000 feet, the world remembered a man who had quietly slipped into civilian life, carrying his burdens without complaint, raising his daughter without recognition. 4. The weight of memory. As the applause died down, Ethan sat again, overwhelmed. Memories surged. Missions in foreign skies, the heat of afterburners, the voices of comrades who never made it home. He could still see their faces. Still hear their laughter. He hadn't wanted glory. He'd walked away from the Air Force when Lily was born, vowing she would never grow up without a father the way so many children of fallen pilots had. His wife's illness had sealed that choice, and after losing her, his promise to Lily became sacred. He hadn't spoken of those years since. Not at school meetings, not to neighbors, not even to Lily, at least, not the full truth. To her, he was just dad. But now, thousands of feet above the earth, strangers were giving him the honor he never sought but perhaps always carried. The young soldier leaned closer. "Sir, I want to be like you someday." Ethan's throat tightened. "Son, be better than me. Led with heart. That's what makes a warrior." 5. An unexpected turn. The moment might have ended there, a beautiful gesture mid-flight. But fate had another plan. 2 hours later, turbulence rocked the plane. Oxygen masks dropped. A child screamed. Panic surged as the cabin shuddered violently. The captain's voice came through, strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've encountered severe mechanical issues. Please remain calm and follow instructions." Chaos erupted. Flight attendants rushed to secure passengers. People prayed aloud, clutched hands, wept. Ethan's training kicked in instantly. He unbuckled, steadied himself against the swaying cabin, and spoke with calm authority. "Everyone, listen to your crew. Keep your masks on. Stay low." His voice cut through panic like a steady beacon. The young soldier across the aisle mirrored his commands, helping passengers secure belts and masks. Then Ethan moved to the galley, quietly asking the attendants what the issue was. The captain's door cracked open just long enough for Ethan to glimpse terrified eyes. "Hydraulic failure," one whispered. Ethan's mind raced. He wasn't in the cockpit, but he knew the systems, the procedures. Years of experience surged back. He scribbled quick notes on a napkin, ideas for emergency maneuvers, then handed them through the door. The captain glanced at the paper, stunned. You know this." Ethan met his eyes. "I flew with the best. Try it." Minutes stretched like hours. The plane shuddered again, then gradually steadied. Passengers held their breath as the captain's voice returned, this time steadier. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've regained control. We'll be making an emergency landing at the nearest airbase." Relief flooded the cabin. People wept with gratitude. The soldier grasped Ethan's shoulder, shaking his head in awe. "You just saved us." Ethan only whispered. "We all got each other home." 6. The salute on the ground. The emergency landing was rough but successful. Fire trucks and ambulances lined the runway as the plane screeched to a halt at Langley Air Force Base. When the doors opened, passengers filed out onto the tarmac, shaken but safe. And waiting at attention on the runway were dozens of uniformed pilots. Word had spread. The moment Ethan stepped off, the line of F-22 pilots snapped to salute. One of them, barely older than the soldier from the flight, called out loudly, "Respect to Falcon." The chant echoed across the runway. Passengers watched, stunned, as the man they'd sat beside in anonymity was honored as a hero among heroes. Ethan swallowed hard, eyes burning. He returned the salute, but then lowered his hand and motioned toward the soldier beside him. "He's the future," Ethan said. "Honor him too." The pilots did. They saluted the young man, who stood trembling, tears streaming. And in that moment, the boy who had boarded a flight nervous about his first deployment now carried the strength of a legacy. 7. The heart of it all. Later, as buses carried passengers to safety, Ethan borrowed a phone and called Lily. She answered on the first ring. "Daddy, are you okay? I saw on the news." "I'm fine, sweetheart," Ethan said softly. His voice cracked. "I'm coming home, and I'll be there for your science fair, I promise." There was a pause, then Lily's small, certain voice. "I already know you're the best dad in the world. But today the whole world knows too." Tears slipped down Ethan's cheeks. He didn't need medals. He didn't need glory. That single sentence from his daughter was the highest honor of his life. 8. The message that lasts. The story of the man in 12F spread far and wide. Not because he saved a flight, not because F-22 pilots saluted him, but because he showed what true greatness looks like: quiet sacrifice, humble service, unwavering love. Ethan Cole was not just Falcon, the legendary pilot. He was a father who kept his promises, a man who chose compassion over pride, service over recognition. And for everyone who heard his story, the message was clear. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, They wear hoodies, sit quietly in C-12F, and remind us that courage, humility, and love are the truest call signs of all.